All right, well, welcome everyone to episode 6 of the Umana Yana podcast. Today we have a very special guest, someone who I met earlier this invite. We're just going to see if Andy is able to join. We're just waiting to have Andy join us. Having a few technical difficulties from that end, so thank you everyone for your patience. We really appreciate it. All right, let's see if that time did the trick to get Andy on here. All right, I see you've joined here, Andy. See the request here. I'm accepting it. Let's see if that does the trick for us. I've accepted that. Hmm. Not sure what's going on there, Andy. I'm accepting it on my end there. No, I'm not able to hear you yet. It also said at the bottom that you're unable to join. Now, I'm not sure what the reason for that would be. It's not really telling me the reason for that. All right, everyone. Well, Andy and I are going to work on it. Yeah, let's see if we can join with the other account there. All right, I accepted that invite there, Andy. There we go.
You
Awesome.
can see me now? Oh my
Good thinking,
God.
man.
Just had to switch accounts. Always a
Yeah.
little, there's always a little trick around it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me today, man. I love the
So good to
shirt.
be
You
here.
always have the best shirts.
I appreciate it, man. You always have the best style.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Um, well, I'm super excited for us to have this chat today, man. Thank you for making the time. I know you're a super, super busy guy, and I think that everyone who's tuning into this, whether live or after the recorded one is out there, I think they're really going to get a whole bunch out of this. So, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself for everybody. And, I'd like to give you the opportunity to grab the mic and really introduce yourself as you see fit. Sometimes I know on podcasts, they ramble out a whole long list of achievements and all these different things, but I want to see what's truly aligned for you to describe you, to our audience. So without further ado, man, take it away.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, I want to take this moment to just kind of let you all know how I'm just one of you. Anyone who's watching this, tuning in, hoping to get something from this, we've probably shared a lot of the same struggles. Maybe some of the same things make us happy and smile and joyful. Maybe we like some of the same food. So at the end of the day, I don't want this introduction to really be about any of those achievements, but really, on this planet, my name is Andy Kalt, and I think I'm truly an explorer, an adventurer, a seeker. I'm a curious individual. I love asking questions. I love being asked questions too. So this type of format for a conversation just lights me up, allows us to go deeper. I love really connecting with a human being. My favorite type of connection is when I realize that I'm having such a good conversation and flow with someone that I'm not distracted by anything else. All of
Mm.
the other things that happen in this world, all the distractions from our cell phone, all the other notifications, you know, checklists, things you need to do for your work, like that all goes away because you just get so immersed in something. Flow state, right, is really something I'm really passionate about. I love exercising. I love taking care of my body. I love waking up with the sunrise, and I try to go to sleep shortly after the sun sets, but that's not usually the case. I love mornings. I love taking care of myself and taking care of my mindset, my heart, and as much as I try to do that and be a good steward of that all the time, I'm also a human being at the end of the day, and it's not always perfect. So yeah, an imperfectly perfect spiritual being manifested in a human, I would say is kind of the bow I'd like to tie on that. So yeah,
I
it's a
love it.
pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and you know what? For those watching, I met Andy only earlier this year, and everything he said there about feeling so present in a conversation that nothing else seems to matter. That's exactly what happened when you and I first met, man. I felt like the conversations that we dove into, they were kind of all over the board, but it was as if we had known each other for a really long time. There was this level of comfort and vulnerability that just existed between us, and I felt like I really got to know you deeply in that short period of time that we spent together. And so, I really wanted to make sure that the people who I know get a chance to expose themselves to you because you have so much to offer, when it comes to mindset around money, being a mindful masculine energy. Also pursuing passions, things like music that you dive into as well. And, your wellness and journey and all of that kind of stuff, purpose, it's all stuff that you so freely share. And I really just want to engage with you in this conversation. We're going to start off talking a bit about Men's Mental Health Awareness Month because, we're on our final day of June, and this has been a really big month. Like I find that in 2025, I saw a lot more effort put into utilizing this month for a lot of awareness and vulnerable conversations and opening up in different ways than I've seen before. So, I'm curious for you, what has this month meant to you and how have you found yourself participating?
Yeah, thank you so much for that and for the intentionality that you bring and for yeah, all the amazing conversations we've gotten to have that have led us to this point, to this moment to have this conversation. I would say, yeah, this month for me has been a very, very impactful, very growth oriented month in my realm of work. I would say it's been a lot more focused on helping steward clients, helping go deeper with people, especially around the money piece, and what I'm sure we'll talk about later, and then some of the event that I did for my music collective as well. But there was a seed that you had planted from a lot of your posts, actually, even reminding me earlier this month that it is men's mental health awareness. So I felt those seeds really plugging in to the conversations that I have, my ability to also just be a really good friend in addition to helping be someone's guide and support system for their entrance into finance or their entrance into music. And I think also really this conversation is kind of the culmination of that, being able to have both of our audiences connected as a Venn diagram to be able to talk about these things, to open up, to find what are the mindful aspects of masculinity that we can open ourselves up to, that we can get more of and be surrounded by really good energy so that we realize that we should be champions of that and not try to hide that, which I think has historically been the case of, at least in terms of how I was raised and seeing masculinity as this, badge of honor for being this, strong,
Yeah.
silent, put your feelings in the closet type of individual. So yeah, I think the biggest pieces and how I've participated actively has been just asking questions, checking in with people, trying to ask deeper questions, and spend more time listening than talking when I really want to check in on my friends and my own support system, see how they're doing, making sure their mindset and their emotional health is doing well.
Right. No, and I love that, man. It sounds like you really made a tremendous impact there. And, you said something that I haven't really heard many men say, if I'm being honest with you. And that is that you really tried to show up and be a better friend. Right. And, I think that as men, as we get older, we move out of our 20s where it's kind of just, wild, wild west, we're just going to do whatever we want to do kind of thing. And then we kind of move more into that mindset of settling down. I find that we kind of transition out of those friends that we've had historically throughout our life. And then we start feeling like, oh man, like, where's my support network? I want to feel seen by the people around me and things like that. So, if you could just share, how have you shown up differently as a friend over time? Because I'm sure there are a lot of us out there who are really hoping to be better friends, but we just might not know how. We might not have seen examples of what that really entails. So, how as men can we show up better for one another in our friendships and relationships as you've seen it?
Totally. Yeah, it's a great question. And I think there's areas where I fall short in this, and then areas where I do better. First off, as I look at my friends, I really try not to rank it based on how long have I known this person, how deep have we gone, how many laughs have we shared, how many wild experiences we had, but that, really the mindset, a stranger is just a friend you've never met. So I really just try to be a friend to everyone. I think as time goes on, I at times have to have more discernment. I think that's helpful and coming out of, being more naive when I was younger, but still giving everyone, the time and space to feel like they can be my friend. And I think the more that, especially where I am in Austin and traveling around, meeting people, it definitely becomes harder to maintain the connections with friendships that I've had since childhood, since high school, even since college. We've, drifted apart, different interests. People get married, they move on, they live in different parts of the world. So that can be really challenging. But something that I really try to lean into is when I think of someone, to just send them a message.
I love
And I won't say I don't bat 1,000 on this, but I do try to make it a point at least a few times a month. There's someone that I think of, whatever that reason is, just check up on them. It
yeah.
could be I'm working out and I'm reminded of, one of my friends who I used to go and lift with, and like he was a good friend of mine who literally got me into working out. And it's just like he popped up in my head at the gym, and I usually really actually try not to be on my phone at the gym at all. Otherwise I can get very distracted. But I was like, you
Yeah.
know what? I'm going to put the weights down. I'm going to text him and check
Mm.
in on him. So just whenever I get that sign, not let it go by the wayside. That goes for friends, that goes for family. Could even be an acquaintance that just a random pop up, a random access memory just pops up. And it's like maybe there's a reason for it. And if
Yeah.
not, just being a good human, checking in on people.
I love that, man. I really like that. And, it's interesting. I actually adopted a similar practice myself. When someone or something would pop into my head, I'm like, you know what? Nothing happens for no reason. So let me reach out. It might be someone so far removed from my like day to day, but it's still like, oh, you came across my mind for some reason. So let me reach out. Let me see, and sometimes that can go a long way. Just someone like knowing that someone thought of them. Sometimes that in itself provides us such a big spark in our sense of well-being and, belonging and being seen, right? That goes such a long way sometimes. And, I saw a stat, I believe it was yesterday, and it was talking about the United States. And what they were saying there is that less than, or sorry, it's about 1 in 4 people feel that they actually have someone who they could call up and feel like they would truly be seen and heard by. And I thought, wow, 1 in 4, that's 25%. Let's think about how many people are truly feeling alone and unseen despite how many, social media followers we have and, how many different jobs we've had and all these different people we've met. We still feel this way, right? So, something I've been really examining myself is as much as we can be a good friend to other people, right? I think that there's still something that we might overlook, especially as men, in terms of the way that we need to also show up in these friendships, right? We need to be mindful of our energy, and the way we're showing up in these spaces as well, so that we can actually have that reciprocation in these relationships, right? Because sometimes we just look kind of like a minefield and, people can see that anger or whatever it is below the surface, and that's not theirs to unpack. Right. So, I'm curious for you, as you've evolved as a man, what have you noticed or what have you been more mindful to do in terms of checking in with your energy and all of yourself so that you can actually show up in these spaces and make genuine connections versus feel really unseen and unheard by the people around you?
It's a really great question, a very timely question too, because I think we're also in a very interesting situation in the world right now, and I feel like it's been going on for many years. But I think, and maybe it's something to do with the fact that it's so easy for us to just consume a lot of information more online, and we're having less conversations in person. That when
Mm,
we show up in conversation with other people, sometimes it can feel very much like a seesaw and a misbalance. If some people all they know how to do is talk and just share a lot about themselves and what they're doing, and they don't know how to actually ask questions and listen and take pauses, that can be, for me, really jarring. I used to be very much in the sense of like I never wanted to upset people. I would stay in conversations longer than I actually wanted to because I would feel like I was a jerk if I just were to exit. But I realized that I was actually putting my energy down and I was letting someone just take hold of the conversation. Because in the past I've also read books about, some the conversations where people feel the most seen is where all you do is listen and ask questions. But I think it actually takes away from your own story, what you want to share, to actually relate back. And to me, when you find that healthy balance in conversational dynamics, I think that's where you can actually have that, something that feels really reciprocated, like the way that you and I converse. So I'm very mindful when I find that people are energy vampires and all they do is talk. And, right as they decide to ask a question, they're almost very quickly bringing it back to themselves. And then it actually has nothing to do with what we were talking about. So like having that healthiness of conversation, and when I feel when I really feel like I trust and connect with other individuals, and maybe have some sort of sense of like, hey, I can be real with you. That's when I can also even share with them if maybe they're not being as authentic or within their integrity of having a really a good and healthy
mm,
conversation. So yeah, it's a kind of a balance between sometimes I just want to protect my energy and I don't want to be part of this conversation, but then also it's like maybe if a person has been left unchecked for so long, they're only going to continue to become a stronger version of the only thing that they know. So it
mm,
is important for us to rise up, to go past that stage of like, yes, this can be awkward, but also that's the beauty of speaking and talking, is that you can find a way to say something in the right way for that person. It doesn't mean it's
mm.
always going to go perfectly, but I always kind of view that as my challenge, if I allow it to be, if there is some potential in the conversation or a friendship with someone that I'm trying to get to, if I feel that it is out of balance.
Mm, I hear you, man. And I resonate with something you said there, was just kind of like, sometimes you would stick around in a conversation that you kind of knew this wasn't for you or whatever it happened to be. And, I realized now that I reflect back a lot, it's kind of like I would do that because I didn't want to ruffle any feathers. I didn't want to make anyone feel unseen or anything like that because deep down, that's truly what I wanted most. But, in doing that, I wasn't actually communicating my own ideas, thoughts, whether right or wrong. Like it's not really a right or wrong thing, but at least the fact that I had one, right? I was never really forthcoming with that too often because it's just like, oh, you know what, I'll be the nice guy and this and that. But then, you sit back and it's like, okay, well, hang on, where are all the deep relationships? And then it's like, well, did I really give them anything to connect deeply with me on? Or was I kind of just a super agreeable dude? Right. And I think that I've seen it happen to some people that I know as well, where that's actually what we did, thinking that that's how you show up and be a good friend. That's how you bring good energy to the conversation. But, there's more to it. Right. And I think that if
Exactly.
more of us, decided to give our opinion and, just be forthcoming with it rather than wait for a red carpet to roll out, I think we would feel more connected in these relationships.
100% agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm always curious what was it that like caused that for us? Is it, being raised to like to be a good person, to be a decent person, being nice? But then I think we can fall into this trap of nice guy syndrome, and then what we think is doing the right thing is just being obsequious to what someone else wants, and then we are always putting ourselves second. And I think a reframing that like being selfish is actually one of the most sacred acts of self-love that one can do for themselves. And if the more we observe and are aware of our energy, the more that we realize like when is it tilting off the scale? When do we need
Mm,
to come back? And some of that means like leaving ourselves from either the room or the situation, or just being like, hey, you know what? I don't agree with this. And then it can even spark much better, healthier conversation or actually understand people's opinions rather than just, being the yes person, agreeing and deep down you're like, no, I actually don't agree with this. I don't know why I said that.
absolutely. And that's where true intimacy is built, right? Whether that's in friendship or in a romantic relationship, having the ability to bring different opinions to the table and not necessarily say in a hierarchy, mine is better than yours. It's just we have different ones and all of them can be true at the same time. That's cool. But it allows us to truly accept all parts of one another, right? And I think that's what a lot of us deep down at the core are feeling like we're missing in these relationships, that deep acceptance of who we truly are. But we got to remember to do our part in that as well, right? So, um,
Absolutely.
I'm curious, when you hear the term mental health, right? Does anything happen within you? Do you get like goosebumps? Is it kind of just like, oh, that phrase, like we need to do something about that phrase? And I ask you this because I notice, when you tend to drop this term in any type of setting, there's a whole array of reactions that happen, right? And so I'm curious about what you've seen and whether you think this term that we use to refer to us, making sure we're in a balanced state, taking care of ourselves, all of that kind of thing. Do we kind of need to rebrand that a little bit and maybe refer to it as something else? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, it's a really, really great question. And one I've thought about a lot lately as I recently read the book Lost Connections by Johan Hari. It's an exploration of depression and how to actually treat it. And I think it's because we've dubbed mental health as this basket umbrella term over trying to, you know, help and alleviate depression. We think that it's just something that exists within the mind. But I think it really falls short. I think that we like mental health was the term invented, I think, with good intention, but I also think that maybe because we didn't actually realize what else exists out there. I think there's so many things that really, to look at it in a more holistic framework, we have to consider the feelings that we have, what's going on in our heart, the dreams that we have, what's the health of them, what I think of as our soul space, our energy, our self-awareness. What are we doing with our nervous system? How are we regulating that? What type of knowledge do we have over our senses? And then really considering like on a deeper relationship with who we are, how we were raised, where we came from, what are the different environments, what are the subconscious patterns that have shaped us, what are the different, why do some people react to certain stimuli in an environment that others don't, and all the people that we've met that shape us. So yeah, I thought about what's the best term for it. I know, a lot of people say inner work. I also think maybe holistic humaning could be a term, but I think it's definitely a lot more than just the mind, which mental health really arrives at. I think it's just yeah, all of those things, maybe even more, that really give us the totality, the whole spectrum of our health, of the different buckets that we can work on, so that we realize the mind is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
But when we do the work in our heart, when we are coming at it really being masters of our emotion, I think that allows us to regulate what's going on in our brain. And I think we've kind of flipped the script, thinking we have to drill down and understand and master the mind first, because our brain is this massive supercomputer. But computer, it also depends what is the software and the firmware that are running on that hardware.
That's a great point, man. Thank you for paralleling it that way. I think that'll resonate, especially with some of the gentlemen on this, who are watching it. And curious from the folks who are tuned in live with us today, or even the folks who are watching this after it's posted. What is there a term out there that you guys think would be a bit more effective, a little bit more inviting for us to have these conversations, just so that as we're bringing them up on the table, people's backs aren't getting up. Just super curious what your thoughts are, what you maybe tried out and seen maybe work a little bit more effectively. This is a community conversation, right? So this is very much about all of us, leaning into one another's experiences around how we can really do this a bit better, right? So Andy, I'm curious, what's the most interesting thing you've ever heard a man say as it relates to mental health?
Mm, it's a great one. Billy Mills, a Lakota runner, I believe, in the Olympics, has a quote. You have to look deeper, way below the anger, the hurt, the hate, the jealousy, the self-pity. Way down deep where the dreams lie. Find your dream. It's the pursuit of the dream that heals you.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah, he
That
didn't say
is,
it to me personally, but it's one that stuck with me for a while.
wow. I that's really incredible, man. Would you say would you consider yourself lucky given the experiences you might have heard of from friends and whatnot when it comes to having men around you who are kind of open to discussing their mental health and championing it? I'm super curious what you've seen in your lived experience because I know we're kind of in an age now where it's quite common or relatively more common for say individuals our age to kind of openly talk about this a bit more, right? Is this something you've grown up around, or is this something that you yourself have sort of gained comfort in as time has evolved, as attitudes within society have shifted? Like, what's been your experience with that?
It wasn't always like this. Definitely not. I'm grateful for the environments that I have arrived in and continue to arrive in that help to elevate me, that help to grow me, that help to me to realize that as much as all of these doors open for me, they typically just help me realize the more learning that I have to do. But I would say it really started about in my late 20s. So probably about 6, 7 years ago when I really even discovered what men's work was. And I discovered that there was a point to kind of reclaiming masculinity. I didn't even know what I had lost in the first place because I was just lost, period. So, I came from, especially in my earlier years of kind of having a very sort of like classic, like I came from a middle class family in New York. I in high school definitely got roped into having, fun experiences, being silly with friends, being adventurous, playful, and then graduating high school, going to college, doing all of that over again, was involved in a fraternity, and it was very much a very party centric environment, but it was in my late sophomore year, early junior year, where I finally had, it was the first moment I had. I was like, I'm doing something very wrong. I felt very unmotivated, very clouded by all of the things that I was doing at that time in my life that was so far away from anything that I felt like I really even wanted to do. And I was just letting life go by me. And it wasn't even like I was sitting in the shotgun seat. It almost felt like I was sitting in the trunk or
Ah,
definitely in the back seat. I was not the driver of my own life. And so I like that was a pivotal moment in my life where I was like, I need to change something. And it's going to be totally governed by my own decisions, not by groupthink, not by wanting to cater or pander to everyone else, because that is the socially acceptable thing to do. And it actually made me somewhat of an outcast for a little bit. And it was also a very empowering, enriching time in my life because I was like, now I'm kind of moving into driving or doing something that's different. I don't know exactly what that is yet. I'm still kind of learning in this realm, but I knew that changes needed to happen. And then when I eventually found my way moving to Austin for a job about 4 years after I graduated college, and also still being involved in the drinking culture and going out and doing this and that. It was when I got to Austin and then was immersed in the music culture, and I was becoming a DJ and I was producing music, and I was finding that shift at that time in my life where I was leaving my corporate job and I was emerging into being a, I mean, I guess it was like the earliest stage of an entrepreneur that I was at that time, but I was
yeah.
going into full-time DJing, and I eventually actually got sober from doing that. I was seeing all of this, energy moving around me in ways that I almost felt I was like, I'm playing music for people that are like, it seems like they're using this as an excuse to just do a lot of substances, and
Gotcha.
they're not really connecting them. They're disconnecting for themselves. And so I was like, well, there's also still an imbalance here, but that helped me get clarity on what are the reasons that I'm doing this in the first place. And that got me into actually creating my own events and more. They weren't necessarily sober events, but they were really about having a mindful connection to whatever you were taking that wasn't going to make you sober in a party environment.
Yeah.
And I think that was like in 2018, 2019, when I started doing that, that was when I was like, okay, there's a lot of work to be done here, but I feel like I'm really connecting more to the type of people that are championing a way of throwing events and doing so in a way that is actually sustainable, for our mind, for our heart, and really
Yeah.
doing it for the love of music. And I was like, if I continue to champion this, I think the right people are going to continue to emerge in my life. And it opened up a lot of doors, a lot of friendships. And then especially as the pandemic emerged in Austin, well, everywhere, but in 2020, there wasn't a lot of time where I'd say Austin was really on lockdown, and
Yeah.
there were actually a lot of different like men's workouts and things going on in Austin where you could go to Zilker Park and go do workouts with guys, and some friends of mine that were doing these like run clubs and fitness activities in the meantime. And I used to go to those and bring friends with me. And I think that also was really helpful. And I got to meet a lot of leaders in the executive coaching community and people that were, that was like really where the biggest wave of they call it the Texodus, people from California coming to Texas, and just to see like these men who were really so deep and connected to helping other men thrive and find their tribe. And I
Yeah.
was like, whoa, this is kind of, like this is really something that I've been yearning for, like, really excited by that this is happening here, and that people want this, and how much more connected I feel to myself, and to other guys around me. So I think since going to events like that, and that's definitely shaped a lot of what I like to bring and unpack in the work that I do. And it does make that type of conversing with people much more available. It's not uncommon going to, whether it's like a conscious networking event here or going out and seeing friends in the community, and for them to not be like, how are you? Like, how is your heart doing? I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, that's so cool. So it doesn't happen everywhere, which makes me feel really lucky and grateful to be in a place like Austin. But I am seeing and hearing a lot more of it all over the place. I think it is becoming a lot more commonplace, and people are really gravitating towards that, of knowing that it's not only available but more socially acceptable to be connecting with other men in this healthy type of container.
Yeah. No, that's really special, man. And thank you for sharing those experiences, because I those are things that I too have yearned for. So it's nice to know that they're happening in places, and I'm super curious because it seems like in the last few years, I don't know if the pandemic brought this on or what, but it seems like there's a shift in attitude towards alcohol consumption, be it socially, just on your own at home, say. And so when it comes to these like events that you have, I'm super curious because I see more events that are actually promoted as dry events, right? So people can truly be in it and present. I've seen some events where, like whether it's ecstatic dance, for example, where they just have cacao, right? Or purely dry, just pure mocktails on the menu. That's all there is. I'm curious what you've seen and heard and how the attitudes around you have sort of presented in terms of, oh, well, I do go to this event so that I can drink and have my whole experience like that. How do you talk to people about, separating the two things, right? And how they can actually get more out of what it is you have to offer if they were to embrace more of the dry opportunity, instead of, say having a few drinks and being a little bit, detached and removed from themselves.
I always like to ask people, what are you looking to get out of going out, socializing, parties? Do you focus more on a connection that you have of being in ecstatic state that you require or feel like you need to drink alcohol, to hit the vape pen, to ingest substances in other ways? Or is it, or do the depth of connections, the quality of the music, just the overall vibe, like do you go for, like, what are the reasons that you're really there? All right.
Yeah.
And that's always one of my favorite questions to really ask people.
Right.
Being at an event, what is it, especially when I go to these like, yeah, dry events, or right now in Austin, these like morning coffee raves over the weekends are all of the rage. Maybe we need to do just like a morning cacao rave as well.
Let's do it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure it would fly well. And finding that, yeah, more people want to not, like, at the end of the day, more people want to just not feel bad, especially in their mind or their body, on the weekends. More people are
Mhm.
arriving at the sense of like being sober is such an empowering experience. I think, one, because most of us have tried or have dealt with in various points of our life having that connection to overconsumption, and whether it was because really enjoyed the feeling of it at the time, it was a socially acceptable thing to do. But now more people are like, I want to take care of my body. I want to take care of my health. And in Austin, fitness is so important. It's like, at any given time, if it wasn't raining right now, I'd probably see three different run clubs out my window, people
Wow.
running together or
Yeah.
biking or one wheeling or whatever. There's such an emphasis on, like, let's overconsume endorphins. Let's sweat a
Mm.
lot together. Let's have so much fun dancing. And I think the priorities have really shifted in that way. So, like, for me, I tend to avoid the environments in Austin where there's still a lot of drinking and overconsumption, and there's zero judgment about it. I think that was a big thing for me when I decided the first time I went sober for about 10 months in the party scene, is like, well, me having this decision is not like, I don't get to be Mr. Self-righteous. I don't get to judge anyone, because a few years ago I was that person on
Yeah.
the dance floor. It took
Right.
me going through that to realize that this isn't for me right now. And it may take other people a realization of that they don't want that either. But also, it's important to have fun and to realize, like, you can find your balance and moderation in whatever way makes the most sense. But yeah, I think that's, hopefully I've answered your question
Yeah.
in parts. I think, yeah, it's important to realize, like, what's the reason why we're there at an event, or why we go out. And yeah, just like, be kind of going back to the earlier point, like, being selfish about that desire, instead of going because you're just gonna give in to what everyone else wants. You're like, you said you were gonna just, like, I said I was just gonna go and have a coffee or a tea, and then three cocktails later, and I can't even drive my car. Like, don't give in to that. Just be
Yeah.
true to your core and really honor that.
I love that message, man. And something you said is going to stick with me forever, I think. You said about over consuming endorphins. It's like there's an intentional effort to over consume endorphins. And I think
Yeah.
that's such a wonderful goal to have.
Yes.
That's truly great, man. But and I think that leads nicely into my next question for you, which is, in your journey of championing your mental health, right? And it's not necessarily that journey ever ends. It's a daily work in progress, right? But what has that really shown you about yourself and maybe the relationships around you?
Realize the more that I've gotten clear and understanding of, you know, being the observer of myself, realizing when I wake up and checking in with my body, how does my heart feel? Where's my mind at? Helps me remember all the things that I repressed from years
Mm.
ago, the things that I did just put under the rug, or thinking that I knew the answer, but I really didn't, because I was probably putting a veil on it for something else. So I'm grateful for all of that, and it's something that I hope others watching this know in their heart of hearts, that it's more than okay to be your full self, to express yourself. The more that I've developed a journaling practice, the more clear I am on what I'm even communicating, and
Mhm.
it helps me realize my own fallacy so many times. It may even be in the span of a paragraph where I'm like, I literally just contradicted myself,
I hear you.
and it's so great because it's the thing that's like I write this down and it's like a soul contract. Like this is going to be on the paper. And I can't, I mean, I could cross it out, I could burn
Yeah.
it, but I don't want to do that. Like I want to look back on these journals that I write years from now and remember that like this was me at that time. And even though I may be a lot further along than I was a couple of years before that, like I'm still going to contradict myself. I'm still going to have fallacy. I'm still going to think I may know the answer in a moment when that actually wasn't the right thing to do. But I think the more that I have kind of simple frameworks and processes for self check-in, the better off I can be for being really true to myself, understanding who I am, who I'm trying to be, and who I'm going to continue to emerge into.
I love that. And you know, so much of our frustration I find is because we're actually living out of alignment with what we believe we're living, right? So having these opportunities to really, you know, poke holes in the story that we're telling ourselves and the world about who we are, right? Taking that upon ourselves to proactively do that and check in with ourselves, I think that really goes a long way. And that shows how intentionally you're showing up in life and, you know, all spaces that you do occupy. So, you know, in addition to journaling, are there other personal practices that you rely on a regular basis, Andy, to support you in being the individual that you are now?
I'd actually love to just maybe even we could do an example of this because it's not
Sure.
just breathing, but it's a really like slowed down breathing practice that I do regularly because I think that in a world that is constantly speeding up and getting faster, we have our power, and the more that we slow things down, which is usually where peace lives. And yeah, could just be a good little practice we do. So yeah, I'm just going to invite everyone to go ahead and close their eyes. We'll make this super quick. And just make sure you're sitting up tall. Put your arms by your side, feet on the ground. Just taking a moment to check in with your senses around you, noticing what it's like to see outside of yourself, even with your eyes closed. Any sensations that you feel on your body. Just imagine a little lighthouse scanning light going from top of your body all the way down your neck, your shoulders, chest, stomach, groin, down your legs, out to your arms, anywhere that you haven't shined that light so far. Noticing any tastes. Noticing when you do just take a little inhale in, what do you smell? Anything that you're hearing right now? What does it feel like to receive my voice right now? To receive all the wonderful messages that Joshua shares? We're just going to take a really nice, gentle breath in together. We're going to do this through our nose and out of our nose. And typically, when you inhale and exhale, naturally it's at about 20 to 30 miles an hour. We want to make it really nice and slow. If we can take it down to about 5 miles an hour and really paying attention to all of the physical sensations that you feel as you're bringing that breath in. So we're going to do a nice gentle inhale in through the nose, bringing all of that air in through the nostrils, just holding it up at the top of the head. When you're ready, you can release that through your nose again, just making it nice and slow, feeling all of that energy fall down. Just go back out into the environment around you. And keep this nice and short. You can go ahead and gently flutter your eyes. Try to remove any tension if you're feeling that in your body. Shake it all out. Come back into the space together. And you can keep doing that as many times as it feels good for you. But slowing down is really I think the most important part for me. I generally like to do things very fast at times, or have historically.
Yeah.
And that's actually kind of just giving in to the environment
Hmm.
because we're in a fast moving world, because we need to respond to all these messages, because we've got that email from our boss, you know, whatever is on the checklist.
Right.
Hey, we're all so busy. We'll have so many things that we do if we live in that narrative, but we can also live in the one of just coming back to ourselves, reconnecting, and letting everything else fall away.
Thank you for that, man. That's a really useful tool, and I hope that the folks who are here with us, they do try it out, because me being here and you talking us through that did a lot for me already. That really brought my body and me back into one. So thank you for that.
You bet.
Thank you.
Happy to
You
share.
know, I really want to shift gears a little bit into something that you really lead with, right? Which is trading and money, right? And, I thought it's really timely for us to have this conversation on the last day of Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, because so many of us tie our purpose and how valuable we feel to what we're able to earn. And so, I'm super curious on how you mindfully acknowledge that in the way that you are in service to people through your business, and, how that's played out for you and how it maybe has evolved over time.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think, yeah, money is, especially for guys, we think of it as this, we have to, if we're not making it, we're not making enough of it, that we either need to be making more or that we are a failure, right? There's so much connection to it. And there's also different types of money that exists. My mentor taught me there's scared money and there's flow money.
Mm.
Scared money is usually what emerges without knowing what flow money is. Scared money is when we have to make money because it is a reaction to having a lack of money, or a lack of thinking that we are feeling good about ourselves because we don't have enough, or we need to do more, or we're comparing ourselves to our friends that have more money, that have more impact, that have more influence, and we feel like we have to be at the same level as them. So we just think that we got to make money.
Right.
But it's also, yeah, the type of money. And flow money to me is what emerges when we focus on process, when we focus on making money from a place of, is everything else, is it aligned money? Is it aligned in the decisions that we're making that govern that?
Mm.
And I found that for the first 3.5 years that I got into trading, which I've always been fascinated by the financial markets, but I saw it as a lane that I could probably continue during the pandemic, of not having to go back to a job, and also not have to rely on DJing at a time when the world was shut down to
Right.
sustain me. And I did have a good chunk of money saved up from making some good investments, and I had a house that I had sold as well. But it honestly, if I could go back, I wish I didn't touch any of that. I think I've been able to work with people who have had far less get much further,
Mm.
because I don't think anyone makes someone have better discipline than when you have nothing. And
Mm.
because I had something, I had worse discipline, because I
Uh,
knew deep down that I had a safety net.
gotcha.
And yeah, and it so it can be even more rewarding the less that you have to start with. But I found that trading offered me a way to realize more about myself and who I am than anything else that I had ever tried, because it is like I am looking into the mirror of my own psychology. And I've never had that experience with
Mm.
any other job that I've ever had in the past. In some senses, playing music in an improvisational sense, but I also get to see other people enjoying it. I'm
Right.
going through my own challenges of, what song do I play next? How do I want to mix it? What effects do I want to use? Are people enjoying the song that's already playing? Do I need to quickly shift? Like, there's all these things that kind of emerge from that, which I've gotten, much better at flowing with over time and reading the room. But with trading, I'm not around other people I work with the traders that are in my community, and I
Right.
support people individually. But for the longest time, it was just me versus the market.
Mm.
And I was relying on other people to try to get answers because I didn't know what a strategy was. I didn't have a system. I didn't understand what actually it took to be a consistently profitable trader for a few years. And then I realized, I realized the error of my ways, and I became obsessed with learning what could be supportive for me, what could help me forward.
Right.
And I think that was, a huge shift in my life, presented a lot of transformation, and realizing that the more simple I kept my relationship with the market, the better I would perform. And
Mm.
that it was something that if I could learn, I think anyone could really learn. And yeah, and it's also I think because the financial markets have such a rep that people hear all the time, like only 10% of day traders succeed, or most people aren't actually successful in the markets. It is actually one of my favorite fallacies to dispel.
Okay.
And I show that, and I really work on sharing that and making it really practical for people to understand. And and I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of individuals I've worked with who are now on the other side of that. Previously
Mm.
thought like I could never be successful doing this, or I've lost so much money, the market hates me. But it's like, no, the market doesn't care about you. Market doesn't know who you are,
Right.
but the market is really just like the ocean, and you get to have a surfboard and decide
Mm.
when you want to ride those waves. Like
Right.
all you've just been doing is picking the wave at the wrong time. You're trying to go at high tide. It's not the time. You need
Mm.
to be more careful, be more patient, be more calculated.
Yeah. Okay, I appreciate that, man. I'm curious because like a lot of us, generally, I think are feeling the pinch when it comes to finances and, just not being able to make money quick enough, basically, to sustain life, on this planet anymore, right? So I'm curious, like what could I do? Say I was intending to start trading, right? But I didn't want to come in from that perspective, like you mentioned, of scared money. I want to be more in that flow money state. But I still have all these external conditions going on that they're impacting how I'm showing up. What would your advice to me be, or what is something that I could do to really get myself into kind of that more flow state of it, so that I can actually reap more of these rewards and do so more consistently versus just sort of attract from a fear state, which in my experience of life ultimately ends up arriving at a lower point than we started at when we come from a fear state. So, what would you say to that?
Absolutely. That's a really good question. And what I would say is, one, keep track of all of the habits that have a negative relationship to what you think you know about the market. I would try to spend some time journaling and filling up every bit of paper with all of the negative connotations you think you know about the market, and what you know about yourself as it relates to the market.
Mm.
Because then we have some information of where those things could come up in a sense of you trading. And my goal with you is like I want to help you decondition all of that. But I don't know what to decondition until we actually see it on paper, until you really see it for yourself. Because then if we're working together, I'm helping you understand trading for yourself, then you're able to then see when those fallacies can come up later.
Understood.
And the goal is to really invite you into a neutral template so that you are approaching the market like a baby. You are back in your prime subconscious molding, and anything that you knew previously has no place anymore. You're
Yeah.
learning from scratch. You're receiving it from a blank slate. And so, and also even writing that on paper of like what your desires are for that. It's like, hey, all of these mistakes or these challenges or anything like that is for me to realize that this is all for me to also delete, to remove, to
Mm.
leave behind, and to emerge into trading, into finance, into what I could possibly learn, completely impressionable, not impacted by any preconceived notions. Because then
Mm.
I think that's where we want that starting point to be. It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean that everything is just gonna, like, I can't wave a wand and actually delete everything,
Right.
But the more that you're aware of what those limitations are, we can work through those and we can then imprint really good systems in place that are more mechanical, that allow for some automation in your trading so that you have basically frameworks and checklists that you can work from
Mm.
that have proven results with data. That is also what I really work with a lot on, sharing what I know and how my students do, to allow people to realize, like, if these people can do it and these are the results that they're getting, why can't I do it too? And
Right.
all it is just following the plan and having the right plan to follow.
Mm. I love that. And I mean, I can see quite a bit, and I'm sure anyone watching this can see. But in your own words, man, and if we step outside of being intentionally humble for a second, what would you describe the Andy difference as? Like, if I'm looking at like 10 people out there who can help me with my money, right? Why have you subscribed to doing things the way you've done in a different fashion, right? Like, what sets you apart? Why do you think what's so different about your approach that you feel people would really be drawn to, or why they should be drawn to you in terms of how you look at things?
Totally. Yeah. Thanks for that question. I think that someone actually told me this when I was originally kind of mapping out how I wanted to grow the consistent profits community. And he told me that we're in this trust recession. There's so many coaches, so many creators, so many AI tools that can create, a landing page in a moment
Right.
and dispel information. And um, everyone's really on like these kind of get rich quick schemes and things and how people do things. And there's all these coaching programs that are out there that, they say they're going to offer a lot, and then they all fall short.
Yeah.
So I really don't subscribe to any of those. I'm very much of like, how can I work with an individual and find out what exactly do they need, and how can I build something that's super customizable for them specifically. So,
Mm.
in that sense, is like I don't always follow the playbook that many others out there are doing who have, the big followings and attract all of the people, because I think a lot of times they have a plan that has worked for some people. And they,
Right.
they may have an acute sense of cases and case studies that work, and then they're able to display that social proof. But they have even more people that have invested in them to help them and haven't. For me, I focus on making sure that every single person that I work with has a premium experience when they work with me.
Mm.
Otherwise, I like, for me, it's either they get results or I'm a failure. And I don't want to be a failure. I don't think of myself as a failure.
Mm.
So I really invest my time into making sure that a person has everything that they need. When I
Mm.
say we have a customized experience, that also means that the, you know 5 sessions or 10 sessions or whatever framework we've come up with to game plan for them, to really allow the market to be a tool for them to have a high leverage skill where they can consistently profit every single day. That may also evolve over time. If they are spending more time really learning and getting further along, then I may put more advanced topics in there that can be supportive to them. So I really look at everyone as a case by case basis. I think
Yeah.
that's why I've had a lot of, like, just about everyone has been really successful. People that have stuck with the plan and have gone through the entire program, many
Mm.
of them now are able to trade full time. They now travel a lot more. Some of them used to be working fast food jobs. So it's been
Mm.
really amazing what we've been able to see with that progress in a short period of time. And that's just the way that I want to continue to design it. I want to always be someone that, people can trust, they can look at, to really, when I think of like my astrological sign of Taurus, the loyal person, trustworthy, grounded, present energy. I think I bring a lot of that into the market.
Wow. I love it, man. And I think that something that really captured everything you just shared there about the Andy difference was captured in a video testimonial from a client of yours that I saw recently, right? And this individual looked like, like it was like a whole new world for them now that they had worked with you and gotten to experience that Andy difference, firsthand. And for anyone who's watching, I encourage you to definitely check out Andy's page so you can see that video testimonial because you don't often see that when it comes to this type of industry, right? I don't typically see video testimonials. So these are real people experiencing real results. And I'm curious, Andy, so far in your journey, what's been your favorite client review that you've received so far?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. Um, I've had a couple lately that have been really cool, but I would say I'll give a shout out to one of my students, Leo. We started working together, found each other on TikTok, sending messages, and then he decided to work together with me. And it was like that moment that we just both turned on the video and started talking to each other. I was like,
Nice.
this guy just feels like a younger version of me, and like he's just so ready to be coached by someone.
Yeah.
And he had seen a lot of the misinformation because yeah, the trading industry has a lot of characters and personalities and people that also advertise a lot of services, and so it gets a really bad rep, unfortunately, because of that, which is why I really have set out to do something much differently, and one that, I was like, if I wasn't the person in my shoes years ago that would be investing into this, then I would not create this myself.
Mhm.
But Leo had just he shared with me after working together with him is just like, Andy took every second we had together, he was always trying to figure out what was the next thing that I needed to know. And he whether he was going 2 steps ahead or taking 3 steps backward, he always met me exactly where I needed to be. And throughout that process and after, he's just been a really good friend, and we still keep up. He's still an active part of the community, the alumni afterwards. So I'm really proud of him. Really grateful I got to meet him, befriend him, and really have had the honor of mentoring him this year.
Wow. Well, very clear. There's a big Andy difference out there, man. You would be my clear choice to work with the markets as well. I know I haven't personally done too much when it comes to trading and whatnot, but after meeting you, I felt like, what? I feel like this guy is the one to equip me with the skills and the know-how so that I could do some of this confidently. How much of my time I invest in it, I don't know. But if I was to do it, I knew that confidence would be what you were able to instill in me. So I think that's just another one that's saying the exact same thing, man. So hopefully, people who are interested in getting into trading certainly do resonate with that. And Andy, as we wrap up here, I just want to give you an opportunity to share with everyone how it's best to connect with you. The different channels, whether that's a website or Instagram, things like that. And maybe if you would just want to share a little bit around why someone might want to connect with you, right? Whether that's at the beginning stages or maybe more advanced, anything like that. This is really your time just to speak to the people and just sort of share why you might be the right guy for them to work with.
Amazing. Thank you. I guess since I'm also doing this on my other platform or my other Instagram account, and we talked a little bit about the music piece as well. I'll just give you a little bit of an umbrella of the different ways to connect with me. So this account, Collective Groove, is also my, the evolution of my music persona. It's a community for aspiring DJs, music producers, and live loopers who are looking for more community to help them grow online, to emerge with both skills and community to help them make better music, not only play better sets, but play your favorite sets, make your favorite music, and do so around other people learning at the same time as you. We found that as a hybrid learning model, it's been really helpful to get people engaged, all learning together versus just going down the YouTube University rabbit hole. So you can connect with me on this account for that, Collective Groove underscore. We also have my website, thegroovologist.com. I believe on the link in my bio, you can also schedule a call if you're curious about that. And where I also spend the other large portion of my time is with my Trading in the Groove Instagram account, and I run the Consistent Profits community that has been really developed to help people figure out have the A to Z blueprint of being an independent, consistently profitable trader. And I'm also exploring ways, how can I make the community more expansive? If this were to have a mastermind or cohort style structure, would that be really helpful for people? Or do people just want the individualized one-on-one experience? I think that the one-on-one experience is going to remain there no matter what. But I am playing around, especially in a city like Austin, because of how community oriented it is, people like learning together, of having, some in-person workshops here in the future. So Austin folks are, we'll definitely stay tuned for that. And I'll continue to be also doing live calls, webinars, things like that. I do host usually about twice a month a live stream for my trading to show people that, I mean, it may still look crazy to people who aren't too familiar with the markets, but
Yeah.
also just to kind of ask questions, get to know it. It's a free call that I do a couple times a month. I have that on my WAP page, which is also in the link in my bio. But yeah, I would say Instagram's really good for messages. I can leave my email as well if that's helpful. But that's usually a good starting point for either of those.
Okay, awesome. And as of right now, are you accepting new clients into both spaces as of right now?
Absolutely, yeah. So we for Collective Groove, we are just kicking off our soft launch for the next round of our music cohort, and we'll be pretty much allowing people to join until the fall. It's pretty much the end of September, and then we go into a 3 month more focused cohort together. But all the while, we're still going to be doing different events, both live in Austin, in person, and online during that time, and then we'll kind of ramp that up into the fall. And then for consistent profits, yeah, our community is open for either the trading, for live trading, for being able to see my live trades, my watch list, communicating. We have a 2 week trial now for that, for just checking it out. And then also I have a couple spots open for one-on-one coaching and support as well.
Okay, amazing. And if people are looking to connect with you in person, as of right now, are you focusing in-person offerings to Austin right now, or are you planning any sort of traveling where people could actually engage with you in person if they lived outside of Austin?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, I actually have a client of mine who lives in California who flew into Austin because we're doing an in-person 3 day immersive together starting tomorrow. So I'm really excited about that. And I do offer those if people want me to come to them and do an in-person immersive. We can do that. And then absolutely working on some retreats in the future, some other events. And yeah, just as time goes on, I definitely want to do more in-person workshops and figure out what are the best ones that are helpful. After doing my music live event last week, I definitely caught the live event bug, and I want to do more of them. It was so much
Cool.
fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wanna bring this all over, wherever it would be most helpful and impactful for people. So if there is demand in groups, and there's people in, like, maybe your folks in Canada or other places are like, hey, we want this, like, let's have a chat and set something up.
Cool. Yeah, I'm just thinking how cool this would be as everything is shifting so much right now, right? I'm just thinking how cool it is that, imagine a guys' night where we actually had one-on-one time with Andy to educate us on something that's actually going to empower us, make us feel, more confident in life, right? And actually help us to achieve some of these goals that we have outlined for ourselves versus, there's nothing wrong with watching the game, for example, but this is just introducing a brand new way that we could possibly spend time together as a group, right? Setting some time aside to invest in you being our, sort of guide in learning these new skills and things like that. Just, what a time to be alive, man. And I do hope that, more people see the value in that and, continue to see the Andy difference so that you can continue to impact their world and they can just continue to love the life that they're living in real time, man. You're doing so much work that really helps people to step on that path and stay on that path. So I have so much gratitude for you, man, and how you just show up and how intentional you are in the way that you show up. So thank you.
Thank you so much, man. It's a pleasure. I receive all of that, and yes, to more guys' nights. I can do some teaching. I'm sure I also have a lot to learn. It could be like a rotation of who wants to offer their superpowers. But yeah, I really appreciate that, and I think it's so cool to learn with other people. And I think people feel even more permission to ask questions when there's good conversation, and it's like maybe I'm in the hot seat and people are asking questions, and really kind of having like that's how masterminds can really form and be. And I think it's just a great way of dispelling and sharing information. And I think that's also something that the more the more that we engage in active communities where we are focusing on learning, the more that we kind of can not only coexist but empower our own critical thinking in an era of time where AI is rapidly taking over, and it's very easy for us to give our agency away because we think we can just, I have a question I need an answer to, I can just chat GPT it, right? But when we are in environments like this, getting together either virtually or live, then it returns us back to human powered intelligence, which
Definitely.
we always need more of.
Agreed. Well, Andy, this brings us to the end of our time together today. But I think that this was truly impactful, man. I got so much out of it. I'm sure the people who have tuned in and will tune in are going to get a lot out of it. Before we do wrap, are there any final words that you have for anybody out there? Anything that you want to share?
Just keep slowing down, focus back on your breath. Anytime you're challenged or there's other things going on in the world, there's a question another good mentor of mine told me one time, and it's, what is this perfect for? Maybe just a question you can think about anytime you're being challenged by something. What is this perfect for? Just a reframing tool. So, for me, I'm just so grateful to be here. I think this conversation was really perfect for me, and being able to just learn more about how I can show up and share what it is that I'm doing in the world, and being able to interweave our audiences. And I think you just allow me to share in a way that just answering the questions the way they're supposed to be answered. So I'm really grateful for it, and I hope that you guys and gals, everyone tuning in out there, received a lot from this conversation.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Andy, and thank you for your time today. And, for everyone who tuned in and shared some time with us today, thank you all. Definitely would love to hear your feedback around what you loved and what you learned, because there were definitely tons of things that really span the spectrum of the human experience. So until next time, thank you for joining us on episode 6 of the Umana Yana podcast. Andy, once again, appreciate you, man, and best of luck with everything you're doing. Cheering for you from a distance, bro.
Thank you.
All right.
Likewise.
Take care, everyone.
Cheers. Bye bye.